Now, this might seem like a tired topic, but it's not all doom and gloom, because finally Liam Lawson has had some good news. Helmut Marko has deemed the VCARB transfer a success for Liam, whilst also calling his teammate the revelation of the year. Rest assured, this isn't going to be making fun of Liam. He's done enough of that for himself, and besides, this whole situation has just evolved into something far bigger than a New Zealander. It's more of a read of where he is right now, and what 3 races with VCARB has done to reset him. It helps that Dr. Marko has said no more changes will occur regarding the driver lineup this year. Well, I mean, at least not until the summer break, because that's when many pundits are tipping that Max Verstappen will make a decision as to where he is going to be next year, whether it's Red Bull, somewhere else, or out of the sport entirely. Maybe Liam could capitalise on it, maybe not. It all depends on where he is in the team and the championship. And whilst many people reckon that Liam Lawson might have another chance to give it a go at Red Bull in the future, it's not looking likely within the next year or so. I think 2027 is the absolute earliest if they decide Horner and Marko to give him a second crack at the whip, which, based in history and Gasly never getting that opportunity despite really proving he was worthy of a second chance, it's not looking great. Especially considering Isaac Hadjar pumping in solid results and feisty fightbacks, and the 3 F2 Red Bull juniors then continuing to impress, it's going to take a monumental effort to fend them off. And it could easily be all for naught if one of those 3 wins the F2 title. If that happens, game over, Liam. Sorry. Or maybe if Christian Horner decides to really big up some PR spin and go, tough luck, Liam. How about you become a reserve driver? I mean, it worked for Alex Albon, and look where he is right now. But okay, let's just yap on a little bit as to what Liam Lawson actually has to do. Whether or not he can actually try and win some goodwill back with the fans, and why he has no choice this year but to drive faster than fast, quicker than quick. He has to be lightning. Also, I think it wouldn't go amiss if they just got Owen Wilson over the radio. Again, I'm not making fun of Lawson's lot. Since his demotion, he has shown clear growth in adversity and just getting on with the job. Rather than publicly venting frustration, he has knuckled down and just been honest with his lot. Far less arrogant than he was back when he was at Red Bull and his last year audition. Yeah. He still believes that he was worthy of being promoted, and that he does quibble the rhetoric from Christian Horner as to why it even took place. Yeah, because he was talking about how sudden it was, that he believed he was going to the Japanese Grand Prix to really show what he could do, which I thought would have been justifiable since he did fairly well there in Super Formula. It was one of the ones that anyone in that championship would know like the back of the hand. Yeah. But fortunately for him, Racing Bull CEO Peter Baer says Lawson has already rediscovered the form and personality that once saw him out-qualify Max Verstappen in 2023. And here's what Baer had to say. This team really backs its drivers. They mean this. Honestly, I think it took a moment for him to digest. First time I saw him when he came to Italy, he looked a bit sad. Honestly, that's how I perceived him. He was a bit puzzled with everything that happened very quickly. But also, at the same time, he knew the people, the tools, the setup. I really felt that very quickly he was returning to being the old Liam. He's a great racer, somebody that has great humour, and that's what we see now again. Now, okay, there hasn't been any spectacular results as of yet, but it is slowly ramping up. Again, Liam saying that the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix, one of the most technically arduous on the calendar, this was the race that he felt the most comfortable in Formula 1 this year. It's suggesting he's using this challenge as a learning experience rather than letting it break his confidence and him being down in the junior team. And that quote, I don't think is a, oh, woe is Liam. They're not trying to get some sympathy from the fans. No. It's a public declaration of support, and it really backs up all of the support that they gave Yuki Tsunoda regarding how he was doing, how he was leading the team, how Daniel Ricciardo's influence et al. Changed and influenced him for the better, and why his lack of a promotion was really weird. They weren't silencing the driver, they weren't speaking the party line, they were backing Yuki up, much like how they are going to be backing up both Isaac and Liam. That is where it was originally manifested at short notice 2 years ago. This subtext to rivals and to the senior Red Bull camp: give us the season, you'll see a better driver at the end of it. This quote will go down as being a really big signifier that VCARB is indeed a team that has now rediscovered its identity after suffering through last year, having absolute confusion, and everyone think that they completely sell out and they're just a billboard for Christian Horner. No, this team, unlike the senior one, is driver first. And it might benefit Red Bull Racing as well, and just view them that this was the right thing for them to do, rather than this being part of some kind of exit strategy to just get Liam Lawson out the door and then somebody else in. a little bit less ruthless perhaps. Now, of course, this isn't without risk, because Racing Bulls does have its own goals for this season. They are in the midst of a midfield battle. They would ideally like to be finishing a little bit higher than 8th place, which, quite honestly, might be doable, considering that Aston Martin has got no clue as to what to do, and keeping Liam would be a really big signifier that they have good faith in him, and as well as Isaac. And yes, admittedly, Bayer's own comments on the matter didn't help, because there were so many instances that he was saying, oh, Visa Cash Up RB or whatever. No, we're not a junior team anymore. We're our own team. And then at the end of the year, it's like, yeah, we might be a junior team. So at least now they've got their facts straight. And now they've got a pretty car. Fortunately for him and Laurent Mekies, the team principal, the team comes across as one with humility, a pastoral slant, more focused, more than willing to back their drivers' takes. Even though the team's bankrolled by the Red Bull Group, they're not always singing from the same hymn sheet. And crucially, Liam Lawson has not spiraled. He has not given in into the anti-Liam rhetoric that has been going on for many, many months now. Which goes to show all of the bump and bluster he was spouting out last year, that it wasn't genuine. That was not him. And it just will be proven this year that he isn't that arrogant. Okay, he might be a bit confident and brazen, but at least it might be backed up with results and solid ability and, you know, not being an enemy to everyone. So maybe he can start to emulate and mirror what happened with the likes of Pierre Gasly and a Yuki Tsunoda at the beginning, when people were wondering whether or not the Japanese driver was fit for Formula One. If he can embark on his own journey of acceptance and realigning, then there might be hope for him yet, that maybe he might become no longer a persona non grata amongst other teams. I mean, there are apparent outs for Williams in 2024 to replace Logan Sargent, but he just spurned that, saying he was a Red Bull driver through and through. So he is now committed, and so far, he is putting in that commitment. Yes, he was confused by the matter, but he has now said after the Japanese Grand Prix, which wasn't the miracle he had hoped for, he told the world he was going to get on with it. And by the time we get to Jeddah, according to his post-race comments, it looked like he had. It is important to give credit where it's due, folks. I was a little bit harsh and called him a loser in terms of getting that 10-second penalty, in comparison to Isaac Hadjar, who ultimately got 10th place on the road and gave the Williams cars a really hard run for their money. But then you also got to remember, then I really should have been a little bit less reactive, that Liam on the road was only about 1.5 seconds behind Isaac. Sure, Isaac did qualify behind Liam in this situation where the best results that any of the midfield teams can hope for at the moment, without some huge catastrophe up at the front, are P8s, 9s, 10s or something like that. If they can finish at a similar pace, a double points finish is certainly viable. And again, according to Liam, it was the most comfortable he had felt in the car since returning. That in itself is a good sign and an improvement that he has dropped the just too slow part of the comfortable angle. And it was around the Corniche circuit, a really intense one. It's steadily gaining a reputation for being a driver gauge. Bit of a shame that it's not going to be around for much longer. They're moving to Kidia toward the end of the decade. Yeah, that Mario Kart 20-story high apex thing. I'm going to miss the Corniche circuit. As a circuit, a track in isolation, I think it's going to be a fan favourite for years to come. And its perception changing in this shorter time, going from being laughably late in 2021 and kind of derided, to now being considered a really good driver's circuit, it just shows that fan perception can easily change over time. Which is why the change in fan perception with Liam is something that needs to be studied for years to come. How it went south so fast! Especially considering that Helmut Marko and Christian Horner rated Liam Lawson recently as one of the mentally strongest drivers in their lineup. Calm under pressure and praised by legends like Gerhard Berger, one of the founding pillars of Toro Rosso, Lawson looked destined for a long career despite having failed to secure a seat for 2024, and people were angry about that, including Liam. The fan sentiment was hugely in his favour, and he leaned into that goodwill to good effect, because throughout last year he was very much making sure he kept his name in the public eye, having a YouTube channel, being active on social media, people getting to know him a little bit more as a person. That would have been a surefire winner of being endeared to the fandom and accepted as a full-time driver. But as we know, that didn't happen, because right now either the community is indifferent to him or they're openly hostile. I certainly think his management were foolish in basically playing hardball with Helmut Marko and Red Bull, basically saying, "Give Liam a seat by 2025 or we're out of here!" Quite frankly, it was pure arrogance on Liam's management's part rather than smart business sense, because Red Bull's been in the game for a very long time and they're prepared to call their bluff and, well, look where we are right now. But then, to be fair, you could probably understand maybe where the New Zealanders' management were coming from here. Liam Lawson was looking like the best prospect for points or a championship run since 1967, when Denny Hume did so with Brabham. Nigh on 60 years ago. It's like how everyone in England keeps going, 1966, way! Yeah, we cling on to that, like how Kiwis cling on to Denny. Then, of course, the tension erupted when Red Bull picked Lawson over Ricciardo to finish off last season, drawing, of course, online abuse from many circles. The context being different from when Liam last time subbed in for Daniel, when he was sidelined due to injury, so a super sub mentality in comparison to somebody usurping the Australian seat. And when you look to New Zealand media, I remember those moments that they were very much pouncing on this opportunity, and Liam was kind of swept in. Liam just came off as like, oh yeah, no, I'm entitled to that. Oh, that's great. Yeah, bring it on. Yeah. So it was almost like he was being prepared for it, whilst Daniel was fighting for his life, having reeled from the fact that after Spa, his dream, it was so close, was denied him. So yeah, sad Daniel equals mad fans. And oh yeah, another thing, going on about how you actually went up against Yuki in Junior Formula and were actually beating him. Yeah, that's not going to help. And wasn't necessarily that accurate and relevant now because Yuki's a different guy. And I think all of this did so much damage to his previous persona of just being a goofy guy who just loves the Cars movie a little bit too much, but overall a little bit harmless. It just made him out to be humorless, overly serious, opportunistic, a seat clause kid. And then couple last year with high-profile incidents, on-track spats with senior racers who themselves have big fan bases, and him scoring just 4 points to Yuki Tsunoda's 8 in 6 races they were together, and then we are going to be getting on to the "I'm not here to make friends" quip. I bet you're sick and tired of hearing that quote, aren't you? So am I, quite frankly, but it is important for this discussion. It not only aged like milk, it aged like Gorgonzola, and really having to G up his supporters in believing that he could actually do this and get a full-time seat next year. He just had to sound cool. And, yeah, you did not sound cool, Liam, so, yeah, a big mistake, because it's not gonna go away. But maybe he thought he was never gonna get this chance again. But fast forward days later, Lawson told GQ Australia that Daniel Ricciardo had been the only driver to congratulate him in getting the Red Bull promotion, with fans juxtaposing that grievance with the "not here to make friends" mantra. You said you weren't here to make friends, so you being bothered by no one else other than Daniel congratulating you for the Red Bull promotion, wouldn't that imply that you did want to make friends than to congratulate you? So if you didn't want to make friends, why is this an issue? It really invited extra criticism. And then, of course, the beginning of 2025 happened. The bravado looked hollow, and Marko's public admonishments reinforced the idea that even senior management felt he had overstepped, fueling further backlash. The original quote's bluntness played well with some Kiwi fans, yes, but once clipped out of context and used time and time again in memes, it's just looking like he has no credibility anymore, and no substance. So yes, understandably, when he did get the demotion, there was not that much public sympathy, that, yeah, people just thought, okay, fine, he's down there now, just forget about him. And to be fair, I did just that, because I was more looking at what Yuki Tsunoda was doing in trying to justify his position in remaining in that car for the rest of the year, and maybe beyond, and hoping that maybe Liam Lawson's demotion would signal the end of the Red Bull curse. So hey, at least Liam might have done some good for that team, and our hearts. And it really doesn't help that Dr. Marko goes on to admit that maybe they promoted Liam a little bit too early, but I will never forget that quip and that excuse, that passing the buck, saying that, oh, the only reason that we hired Liam was because we couldn't hire Yuki because Adrian Newey would have been mad after what happened in 2022 or something like that. And it was just such a blatant lie. So yeah, one of Marko's poorer soundbites, quite frankly. So each stumble fed the meme machine, and the actions basically just cast Liam in a negative light, with everyone just saying, oh, typical Red Bull. It just all reinforced doubts about Lawson's readiness. But insiders describe Liam as polite and introspective, not arrogant. But the perception stuck because silence and probably a PR machine in crisis, and basically telling Liam to just keep his mouth shut, it left a vacuum for fans to eagerly fill up. So simply put, what Liam Lawson needs to do right now is start to open himself back up again. The real Liam Lawson, not the arrogant little twit that we got last year saying he wasn't here to make friends. He also has to beat Isaac Hadjar rather convincingly and justify being around for another year, because at the moment Isaac's doing just that as well. Don't get involved in politics and drama from Red Bull Racing. Do not comment on what Christian and Helmut say. Just get on and do what Piastri did at the beginning of his McLaren tenure. Keep your head down, get the results, and let them speak for themselves, and then people might warm back up to you. So ultimately, Liam Lawson's lot, it just comes off as a cautionary tale. So okay, that's all very well and good, Law, but why is your title saying that Liam Lawson still has no choice? Well, he has no choice because there is no margin for error anymore. He cannot make any more mistakes. As I touched upon in my recent winners and losers videos, that the situation is really dire for Liam Lawson, and even though he is doing his best to try and correct many mistakes, including his public image, he is really going to have to put in the effort of his life and literally become Lightning McQueen if he wants to avoid the drop. So he's got a lot of jobs at the moment, 5 of them in fact. 1, beat Isaac Hadjar convincingly. 2, drag that VCARB into situations where points are quite regular. C, stay out of political drama with Marko and Horner, because they're doing a lot of that at the moment, especially around Max. 4, look so plug and play, dependable, reliable, that maybe Red Bull might look the other way with their F2 lots, especially if they don't do all that great or they're not within their targets. And then 5, most importantly, maybe try and make some friends. And even if Max Verstappen stays and Yuki Tsunoda continues to impress, every element below flows from these 5 pillars. I mean, that is kind of accurate. Max Verstappen is a special case, but it would have been very galling for a 19-year-old to have heard that. But then again, I doubt that any father out there would be as ruthless and cold as Jos Verstappen was in Max's formative years. Yeah, Verstappen was completely unique. I don't think he'll ever be emulated again. And it doesn't really help that Marko is absolutely beaming regarding Isaac Hadjar, one of the revelations of 2025, after the French rookie snagged early points and outqualified Lawson twice. In Jeddah, Hadjar managed to come back from 14th to 10th, and could have easily been more had Williams not pulled a fast one with Sainz's patented DRS manoeuvre, and Lawson had slipped back to 12th, 11th on the road, leaving the Kiwi still scoreless. And Red Bull rates intra-team comparison above everything else. Therefore, it's absolutely clear. Lawson has to get off the starting blocks. He has to make more Q2 and Q3 appearances. And fewer errors than Hadjar, because if he does not and Isaac continues to improve, then we are going to hear more and more positive soundbites from Helmut Marko. I wouldn't be surprised that we don't get any announcement from Racing Bulls regarding next year's lineup until pretty much near the end of the season, maybe afterwards. And even though I have said that Peter Baer has been very supportive of Liam Lawson, he's also been objectively accurate, saying that right now, Liam Lawson is one of only 4 drivers to have yet to score in 2025. This isn't Peter being absolutely cruel and callous, he is just stating an obvious fact. The same applies to other drivers, including Fernando Alonso. Yeah, can you just believe Aston Martin's lot? It's absolutely atrocious. At least VCARB looks like it's going somewhere. You know, that Rolling Stones promotion Aston Martin's got going on? More like Strolling Stones. But equally, it's up to the team to get their strategies right. They've lost a good chunk of points this year because of the wrong calls in the pits. I think they would have lost out on maybe a 4th or 5th from Yuki around Albert Park. It makes Liam's lot even harder, as well as Isaac's. So I personally think that the cutoff point, that if they can get above the 30 points that Yuki Tsunoda scored throughout the entirety of 2024, that should lock them in for another year with Racing Bulls. But yeah, that might take the whole year, so therefore don't expect any announcements to come anytime soon. And another thing that Liam needs to do is to prove he is worthy of the seat guarantee clause, which arguably got him into the 4-man crew, which did become a fan backlash meme. But I think Dr. Marko is coming to terms that this idea is probably right up there with the idea of bringing on De Vries from Williams, and that didn't really help. The same man says that right now, that the junior pool is a luxury problem, because you've only got to look at what's going on in F2. All 3 Red Bull junior drivers, Goethe, Lindbladand, Pepe Martí, they're making very strong cases for promotion. So therefore, Lawson really needs to accept the gratitude that Red Bull gave him in demoting him rather than eliminating him entirely. Because if they were playing hardball with Liam's management team, because Red Bull could have easily been quite cutthroat and just gone, there you go, he was in a seat for 2025 and technically we have honoured our agreement, so bye-bye. They didn't do that, thankfully. There was a little bit of mercy. So Liam should be a little bit thankful for that, and I think he is. Because if he were going to be another team, I'm glad it's Racing Bulls. But yes, the 3 junior drivers. Any one of them can mount a push for the championship if everything is aligned. Pepe Martí, he won the Bahrain sprint from P11 and currently is very high up in the order, showing Alonso-like racecraft. So if he can find himself at the end of the year in the top 3, that would give him all the super license points he needs in one go to guarantee him an opportunity in Formula 1. However, Arvid Lindblad, he doesn't nearly have to do as much because he already has the super license points required, so his target may be a little bit lower because, well, he's 17, he's going to get that special dispensation since Kimi Antonelli had it, and if he doesn't get it, then I'm pretty sure this is going to get another Christian Toto little civil war going on. And Lindblad has a good example too, because he is F2's youngest winner with his Jeddah Sprint triumph, already owning the necessary points thanks to his Oceania title. He's going to be the most likely Red Bull Junior as of now to get an FP1 session, used at both teams to act as a barometer. It could easily be to compare himself against Isaac Hadjar, Liam Lawson, even Yuki Tsunoda, who knows? And if Pepe Martí gets an FP1 session, because let's remember, all the teams have to field at least 4 slots for FP1 young driver sessions, that comparison is going to be very personal to Hadjar, because Hadjar and Martí, they were teammates last year at Campos, so there is a bit of relative comparison to be had, so that'll be very interesting, especially for Pepe. Oliver Goethe, he's not as explosive as the other two, but he does hold high regard with Dr. Marko and his team MP Motorsport, saying he is aiming for championship glory in his first full F2 campaign. The only thing that saves Liam Lawson right now is that he has the shield of experience, that he has been round the block. He had his time in Super Formula, he did admirably in 2023 and scored some points, and then Zandvoort happened, the rain, he kept it on the track. It's all respectable stuff, even though the Grand Prix count doesn't reflect that. He has been within the F1 world since 2023. And by the end of this year, he will have amassed enough Grand Prix, slightly more than a full season campaign. So it's up to Liam now to really make good of that, get some more points, ideally get those 30 points that would guarantee him 2026, and most importantly, don't get any more penalties. So his lot is brutally simple. Crush Hadjar, exploit the more stable VCARB 02, which has gotten Max Verstappen's head turning sometimes, and keep Marko off his back. One slip, Red Bull will swap him out for one of the 3 hopefuls before the Christmas cards are signed. That's how their system works. And I don't expect that Max Verstappen's exit, if it does happen, will give Liam Lawson a reason for hope, because I doubt that Red Bull are going to promote him back up to Red Bull Racing so early on. They would rather bring back Gasly than bring back Liam Lawson to the senior team after just 1 year down at the second team. He's going to need a long time to regroup and rediscover himself. 2027 is the bare minimum. And if we do get a dream scenario for the Red Bull Junior program, and you get Goethe, Lindblad, and the likes of Pepe Martí in the top 5 in the championship, all 3 of them could be really mounting a campaign. If Max Verstappen walks, they decide to say bye-bye to Yuki Tsunoda anyway, and it's completely all change. Yes, of course, that is a little bit of a speculation moment and a foam of doubter, but it's still something that I think could easily be in the back of everyone's minds at Red Bull to try and reset and rebrand themselves and reinvent, because they have to be thinking about life post Verstappen right now. They can't wait until 2028. Lawson's early season failures exposed Red Bull's farcical justification and decimated whatever goodwill was remaining with Lawson. Every point Hadjar scores exacerbates the issue. Then, unless he is able to provide some good consistency and do exactly what Pierre Gasly did over a number of seasons with AlphaTauri, then there's not really much more he can do, because these 3 guys in F2, they are looking pretty spicy. You could argue that Horner and Marko sent some karmic justice Liam's management's way and made him an undesirable up and down the grid. So therefore, it's up to Bear and Mekis at Racing Bulls to eschew that sentiment and get some karmic justice back. Really make Racing Bulls out to be a place where people can rebuild and rediscover themselves, driver first, or risk Liam Lawson's future in F1 being swept away. Much like George Russell? Oh yes, of course, it's silly season. To find out more about how this year's instalment of silly season got going with an absolute barnstormer, watch this video next, straight after this one. Oh yeah, and lighten up, it's silly season, just calm down.